Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name's Leo. So let's go ahead and dive in here. Today is what they're calling, or the president's calling, Liberation Day. Now, I think of it a little bit differently. I think of its liberation from all the stress of these tariffs that the market's been feeling. And the market overall, whether you're talking about Ethereum, Bitcoin, stocks, whatever, it is selling off because of the uncertainty around these tariffs. And a big part of that is just not knowing what's going to happen. 1 second tariffs are on, 1 second tariffs are off, 1 second a new tariff pops up. So I think that the market has severely overpriced these tariffs. And after today, what I think is more likely, I would give it like a 70% chance that we're going to see a relief rally, a V-shaped type recovery in stocks, crypto, etc., because now we finally have certainty in the market. Well, maybe certainty is the wrong word. We have clarity as to what's going on with the tariffs. So let's go ahead and dive in here and take a look at kind of some of these articles. So Mexican president says Mexico will not impose retaliatory tariffs on the U.S., favoring negotiations over confrontation. She says an eye for an eye always leads to a bad situation. Now, Canada has come out and they've said something similar. So leading report says breaking Canada to remove tariffs if the United States agrees to do the same. And, I've been talking about this for a while, that unfortunately for Canada and Mexico, 80% of their exports are to the United States. So they really can't afford to be in a prolonged trade war with the United States just because so much of their economy is dependent on the United States buying their goods. So to me, this has just been like a delayed, and maybe negotiations are going on behind the scenes, but it's just been a delayed negotiation, or rather resolution to getting these tariffs between Mexico and Canada. I never saw the Mexican and Canadian tariff situation being something that goes on for a very long time. So I expect that this will get resolved. Now, the European Union and their tariffs, it's a little bit different. So the EU plans emergency measures to guard the economy from Trump's tariffs. So whenever I hear emergency measures to guard the economy, to me what this is saying is that they're going to start printing money to make up for. So it sounds like the EU isn't going to bend the knee, if you will, on tariffs. It sounds like what they're wanting to do is just stimulate their economy to compensate for it. So this is going to be something that'll be real interesting to kind of keep an eye on going forward. And if we come over here, we can take a look at. So this is the global liquidity indicator. And now this is, if you come into the settings here, what I did was I just checked off the European Central Bank. And so what you're seeing is you're seeing the global liquidity from the EU already starting to spike. So if they are wanting to go into a situation with tariffs where they're going to, we're going to stay steady on this, we aren't going to bend the knee, we're just going to pump our liquidity in our economy, then what that's going to do is that's just going to contribute to more of global liquidity rising and pumping risk assets such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and just the general stock market. And you can see that now what we've done here is we're seeing global liquidity across the board. So, this is like China, Japan, all the major banks. So you notice that once global liquidity spikes above the blue weighted moving average here, that has signaled the start of the real bull run. So, going all the way back to 2016, you can see that global liquidity began to spike up and then things went off to the races. Same thing happened in the bear markets. Once global liquidity begins to contract, you go into this prolonged, choppy, sideways bear market. Global liquidity, it spikes up, and then, risk assets are off to the races. So we're still waiting on the Fed, the United States, to begin dumping liquidity. So we just come in here, we take all of them off. We'll leave on the reverse repo. Actually, no, because I want to show. Yeah, there we go. So, we're still waiting for the United States Federal Reserve to really start pumping liquidity. That's really because they're the biggest liquidity provider in the global scale. So once we start seeing this spike up, things will get really, really exciting. But overall, we are seeing global liquidity increasing. And so now if we come back in here, we can see this long-term trend channel that Bitcoin has just been chugging along in. It's just been whenever it gets down to this lower boundary, it just chops, and then it begins off to the races. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we came down here to the bottom part of this channel, and we've just been kind of chopping up and down. And so again, with that clarity coming later on today, I believe it's 4 p.m. Eastern time, that Trump's going to address the country and then the world about tariffs. So I expect that once we have clarity, we'll see this move higher, move away from this resistance. And same thing goes for Ethereum. You come over here, you look at Ethereum, it's sitting right on really strong support here. You can kind of see how in the past price has come down, touched again. Now it acts as very strong resistance, broke above it, and then it acted as support. And then now we're just effectively chopping sideways. So we are seeing this holding for now. And so I think that it would be a perfect situation where it's been bleeding, runs into really strong support. We get some clarity, the whole market and world get clarity on tariffs today, short of anything crazy happening. And then we move off. So hopefully this is going to be the point where it turns around. We're also seeing global liquidity just starting to increase. So I do expect that this will hold. I still don't think that we're going to be going. I know some people are calling for like $800 Ethereum. I don't see anything that would support that. If we look at inflation's coming down, CPI's expected to come in at, look at Cleveland Fed. So they're expecting inflation to come in at 2.49, and then April you got 2.56. Inflation's basically over. So that means that the Fed's going to start cutting rates here very soon, especially with them having to refinance the debt. There's like $9.2 trillion worth of debt that needs to get refinanced. So anyway, I feel like I'm starting to babble there. So we're going to get back to the news over here. So something else that's going on in the crypto space. First Digital Trust, the issuer of FDUSD stablecoin, has stated that Justin Sun's allegations are false and viewed by the company as a defamatory campaign. So basically what these accusations are FDUSD has depegged to under 90 cents among insolvency rumors. So, this is something that we've seen in the past with other stablecoins where their backing starts to come into question. Are these backed by real assets, or is this all just, a fugazi, pixie dust? And, this is why I believe that as we move into a tokenization economy where U.S. Treasuries, stocks, bonds, mortgages, insurance products, they're all tokenized and living on the blockchain, this isn't going to be an issue anymore. And it's all going to be, or most of it's going to be on the Ethereum ecosystem. And so if you want to check the validity of a bank's or some other institution's stablecoin, you can just go on chain and be like, okay, well, here's the contract. Oh, there's all the U.S. Treasuries they're holding. There's 1 billion stablecoins. Okay, there's 1 billion worth of U.S. Treasuries. They're solvent. No problem. It's all very transparent. So this is just moving into a more decentralized and trustful economy, in my opinion. We'll have to keep an eye on this, see what happens. Even if they do depeg, I don't think there's anything too crazy for the market. So moving on here. So Cointelegraph's reporting crypto-backed mortgages let borrowers use digital assets like Bitcoin or Ethereum as collateral for real estate loans without selling their holdings. This is really interesting because I was just talking about this the other day. So imagine a world where you have like stocks and all these assets that are tokenized, and because their ownership is tokenized, you can post them as collateral to help you qualify for a mortgage. So with mortgages, you typically have to put down 20% down payment. So if the mortgage is you have a $100,000 home, the bank will want what's called a loan to value, meaning that they will only lend up to 80% of the property's value. So they'll only give you $80,000. And that means that you got to come up with the other $20,000. So what you could do in the future with mortgages is you could post your stocks. Say, I don't have the other 20% down payment, but I've got $30,000 worth of stocks I can post as collateral to make it more favorable for them to lend to you. Or you could post more collateral to lower the interest rate on the loan to make it more less risky for the bank. So this opens up a whole world of value for the global economy because, so going back to like the whole network connections, the more connections that you have within a network, the more valuable it becomes. And as you begin to tokenize real world assets like stocks, bonds, whatever it may be, that's now living on the Ethereum ecosystem, which means that it's very easy to connect a tokenized S&P 500 ETF to a mortgage, or to connect it to a smart contract will, where, as soon as the person's death certificate is tokenized and put on the blockchain, that will is executed the way that they want it to be executed, that you don't have to deal with some lawyer trying to interpret your will and execute it. So it all just gets dispersed immediately to wherever it's supposed to go. So the more connected the financial system becomes, the more value that the entire economy is going to be worth. So, you can do a thing where you can reach across the globe and deal with global investments. So you can have somebody in like India or some other country, fill in the blank, Vietnam, where they decide that, hey, I want to take my stable coins and I want to post them up as liquidity for a mortgage platform and I'm going to earn interest on those stable coins by lending out some extra money that I have for somebody in the United States or somebody in Canada or somebody in fill in the blank to be able to get a mortgage. So it just opens up a lot of doors for people to make more money and to be more prosperous all around the world. So moving on. So Fidelity is kind of a really big news today. So Fidelity has launched a no-fee crypto IRA that allows U.S. adults to invest in Ethereum and other cryptos. So what we're starting to see is that these companies are now allowing people to invest their retirements into Ethereum, into Bitcoin. And so what is that going to do? Well, if you look at the S&P 500, what the S&P 500 does is it typically just grinds higher. It doesn't have the dramatic downside that you see with like Ethereum or Bitcoin. And part of that's because of the diversification of it. But the other part is that every week when people's paychecks come in, it has an automated bid, meaning that as people's paychecks come in, a fixed amount gets sent off to their retirement, and then it goes out and it purchases the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or what other else financial products they have inside their retirement account. And so what this is opening the door is that now crypto is going to have an automatic bid as soon as this gets set up, to where, every week people are just allocating a fixed amount into these assets. So this is a really, really big deal. I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it. So I think that pretty much wraps up the news today that I've seen, kind of get my thoughts on it. I will keep you all updated on to, what's going on with the tariffs. Probably won't get that video out until tomorrow. If you want, follow me on my X account. The link is going to be in my description, and I'll be giving my thoughts out on there. So if you want something more immediate as far as my thoughts on the tariff situation, I'll likely be posting it on my X account or Twitter, whatever they want to call it. Anyway, so I will talk to y'all in the next one. Yeah, until next time, y'all take care.